Now to the charade exhibition of J. Mensah Bosman Asare Voters Register. From the evidence gathered so far by our hard-working monitoring teams across the country, the anomalies that have characterized the register can best be described as a comedy of errors that were predicted before and during the shambolic voter registration exercise. Never before in our electoral history have we witnessed the display of such expensive incompetence by one of the most internationally revered institutions in our country. And it's very, very sad because we warn, we caution, there is no time, take your time, you do this under duress, under stress, in a rush, you're going to have problems. They would not listen. So we went ahead. Now let's register. Now we have registered. Look at the mess, an expensive mess. They've been given almost 1 billion Ghana cedis, and yet look at the results that we're getting. So now we'll take you through some of the errors, and key among the errors observed from the exercise include: 1, outright omission or removal of registrants through duplication, and there are so many examples. Do you have your table there? Okay. So many examples, we can't even finish, but we just want to give you an idea, just show you, region by region. So many examples. These are not isolated cases, because I heard Bosman Asare on Friday saying, oh, that is why you do an exhibition, so that where there are isolated cases. These cannot be isolated cases. It's impossible. Mismatch of personal ID numbers, multiple instances of same photographs on different ID cards, and so many. It's incredible. Now I'll give you just two real life examples, because the people are here. In Laura, at a polling station called Tongo, 439 people were registered, but the provisional voters register had the names of only 7 people. As many as 432 names went missing. I mean, how is this possible? This is not the first time we're doing a registration in this country. It's unprecedented that at the particular polling station where we have 439 people, as many as 437 names have gone missing. 432. So you have only 7 names on the entire register. Does it make sense? A so-called new register, new machines, and the register is bloated, and deduplication and all those things. Is that the result? We have Carlos sitting right in front of us. He's here. Raise your hand, let them see you. And I'm just so you don't go and say, oh, it's only one example. I'm using them just as case studies. That's why we're giving you all of this, region by region. And these are just some. We couldn't capture all. Every single region, we had such cases. Now, Carlos is at the Methodist Church polling station at Ablekuma South. He checked, his name was not on it. But the best is, the most horrible one is yet to come. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable MP for Ashaman, Honorable Ernest Nogbe. He himself will be given the opportunity to come and tell us his own story, so that you know that we are not making things up. Below are details of the anomalies we have been able to capture to share with you. So, 1, same PIN number issued to multiple applicants. So, under no circumstances should any database, be it biometric or otherwise, have multiple people issued with the same personal identification numbers. It's unheard of. It's atrocious. It doesn't happen in any registration exercise. It's just somebody who says it's impossible and cannot. Be it biometric or otherwise. In other words, the uniqueness of a PIN must be guaranteed at all times in any credible database. We wish to state categorically that this was not the case in the previous register, which the EC had thrown away. So in the previous register, there was absolutely no way that you would have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people with the same PIN number. That register, that was bad and horrible. In any case, earlier, the EC had said the register was credible, had used it for several activities, And now, with the 1 billion CD register, you are having something which is unthinkable, unheard of, and unimaginable. So, that this was not the case in the previous register, it is therefore sad that after spending almost 1 billion Ghana cedis to compile a new register, we have ended up with a register which does not guarantee the uniqueness of the PINs, which is the most fundamental principle in a database design. Indeed, the essence of identity management is to register, clean up the data, and issue unique PINs to every single registrant. Having duplicated and triplicated PINs is akin to a bank issuing the same account number to multiple customers. That is how serious and fundamental a PIN is. It is therefore our position that the new voters register has failed a fundamental credibility test. I mean, imagine you go to the bank and 10 of you all have the same account number. So if somebody wires money to, say, you, how then would they know? It's totally incredulous and unheard of. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you some location-specific anomalies. As I said, the issues are many. So just to give you a broad perspective of some of the issues. For instance, many of the exhibition centers in the districts do not have biometric verification devices, BVDs. For instance, out of 1,078 polling stations in the whole of the Western North region, only 400 had BVDs. This means that the BVDs are not being used to verify people on the register in this exhibition exercise, even though the EC budgeted for these devices and was supposed to procure them for use at every polling station. So if you're doing exhibition and you don't have BVDs, they said something that they were going to deploy 5,000 BVDs. On what basis? It wasn't discussed. Who determines where those 5,000 go? And where are the rest of the BVDs? Everything doesn't make sense again. 2, there are several instances of disparities between details of printouts obtained during the registration and the information on the provisional register being exhibited. 3, there were missing names, replication of names, swapping of photographs, and differences in ID numbers at virtually all centers visited. In the Sunafo South, for instance, in the Anambra region, male photos on the register were used for female registrants and vice versa, and many names are missing from the register. Some of those successfully challenged still have their names on the register. In Asnafo North, one photograph was used for several people on the register, and that is a very major thing that we've seen in many other places where you go to a registration center, there are about 237 names, and all those 237 names, they have one picture. The whole thing is crazy. And these things that we are saying, don't just take them, go and check. It's ridiculous and preposterous. 237 people in a community register, and all of them have one photograph. Does it make sense? At some centers, the EC's presence was virtually useless. For instance, the exercise was halted at the Zausi Primary School polling station in the Binduri constituency when the residents realized that only 14 names were captured out of the 413 registered at the center. Out of 413 people, only 14 names appeared. So where are the 399? Have they been swallowed in the belly of Boswalasai? The belly of the elephant. In the new Ebiguasi constituency, there was a case where voters got to the centers to check their names, and instead they were issued with new cards with new ID numbers. Are we doing another registration? It doesn't make sense. Many Ghanaians have described the short code 1422 announced by the EC as a scam. This is because the information retained by the system usually belongs to a different person. So you check 1422, it will give you information. Some who have taken the further step to go to the polling station to go and check will find different information. So we'd like to advise all of you, please don't rely on it. Go and check and be sure, because on election day there will be no time to do any rectification. Their names were missing from the register, although the system had verified them via the short code. Some exhibition centers either started early or did not work on the first day of exhibition. And this has a potential of putting people who troop there on the first day off. But strangely enough, you say, well, I mean, this happens once in a while. Strangely enough, this happened mostly in the strongholds of the NDC. In Kwanta South, in the Oti region, for instance, all the polling stations in the outlying areas were unable to commence on the first day. Still in the Oti region, as late as 12:30 p.m. on the first day, EC officials had not reported. People who were successfully challenged during the registration and whose names were expected to be deleted still had their names on the provisional register. And this confirms what I just said, that the deduplication committee exercise did not conclude their work, and yet we're doing an exhibition. At the MA Primary School, Mbradai Exhibition Center, the picture of one registered voter had replaced the pictures of almost all the registered voters at that polling station. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, these are only a few instances which time will allow us to mention. As stated supra, a more comprehensive compilation would be available to relevant stakeholders in due course. Meanwhile, the EC does not seem to disappoint when it comes to miraculously targeting the NDC strongholds to inflict their so-called errors on them. Isn't it curious that most of the exhibition centers affected with deletions were in the Zongos? What about the fact that in the Afram Plains South, the phenomenon was more pronounced on the islands, which are known NDC strongholds? Now, SMS short code verification. We have also taken note of the announcement of the EC that the use of a short code to confirm the existence of their names of the voters register. We note that the EC has failed to inform Ghanaians in its publicity that the use of the short code attracts charges. How many of you are aware that when you use the short code to charge, you are charged 30 pesos? Did they tell you? Were we aware? Now, the EC is not a profit-making entity. They have a budget, almost 1 billion Ghana cedis. So since their budget has been approved and money is released to them, who is that money going to? And in the name of transparency, why did they not inform the public ahead of time? It's a question that you must ask. From our observations so far, we have come to the conclusion that the use of the short code to verify the existence of their names of the register is not reliable. We therefore wish to caution Ghanaians and our supporters and the electorate from relying solely on this method of confirming their details on the register. We wish to encourage everybody to find time and physically visit the exhibition centers to confirm their names, to be sure that their names are on the register to accomplish the rescue mission come December 7, 2020. We wish to use this opportunity to commend various civil society organizations and well-meaning Ghanaians who have been vigilant and positively critical of the electoral process so far. And I don't want to mention names, but you all know over 40 CSOs that stood up and raised critical questions about what the EC was doing and was going to do, and anticipated some of the problems we are seeing so far, and individuals who took it upon themselves to do thorough analysis, thorough technical analysis, thorough financial analysis, and thorough logistical analysis of the challenges and constraints that the EC is likely to face if we continue to go ahead with this new register, and we are all seeing this today. So we need to commend them, and it has helped ensure that the EC, if they were listening, they would have done the right things. And we wish to encourage them to do more, even now, as this exhibition is showing clearly that indeed all the issues that they raised and the analysis that they made were right on point. Now, we have a message to our very eminent citizens, and most of them are people that we have very, very, very close personal relations with. You know, we know them, they are friends, and some of these views we have expressed to them both in private and in public. Last time, Chairman chaired a meeting with the Christian Council leaders, and we told them, some things that were bothering us. In previous elections, the nation relied on well-respected, eminent Ghanaians to intervene through quiet diplomacy when there were tensions. We were therefore concerned that the very people the nation will rely on as moral voices were co-opted into a so-called eminent advisory committee by the Electoral Commission. We had cause to caution our eminent personalities that were invited to be part of this committee. Having been co-opted as part of the EC, we have come to the conclusion that the J. Mensah-led Electoral Commission acts on the advice of the eminent advisory committee, and therefore the committee endorses all their actions and inactions. With all these developments, will it be fair to ask members of the eminent advisory committee whether we should hold them responsible for the mess and the potential chaos that the EC is causing? They should reflect on this soberly in their closets. To the rest of our moral voices, religious leaders, statesmen, and some in the media, saying some are doing fantastic. Some too see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. There are a lot of things going wrong in this country, particularly with our elections architecture. But unfortunately, we don't hear them comment on any of these things. There's a point in history, in the history of a country, where the silence of the responsible and senior influential citizens in the society can no longer be golden. Because sometimes they tell you, silence is golden, and where we are heading to, that kind of silence cannot be golden. In fact, there's a quotation that says that silence is criminal, but I don't want to use that. I'm saying that that silence is no longer golden. They must speak, because one day posterity will judge them. We wish to remind everyone that God is watching all of us. And if by their silence this country is plunged into chaos, all of us will suffer. But it is not too late for concerned citizens to speak out and condemn acts that have the potential to undermine our democracy. Such continuous silence in the face of such blatant disregard for common decency and abuse of office and incompetence is tantamount to a betrayal of their hallowed positions in society and the entire populace. Our message to Ghanaians: in a democracy, governments are changed or maintained through the ballot box. The outcome of free, fair, and credible elections is the sovereign will of the people. Therefore, any act that undermines this sacred exercise and denies people their free will is tantamount to treason with our guns. Because in a democracy, the only way that you can change or maintain a government is through the ballot. So that vote is holy.